Hello and welcome to Off the Court. Yes, it's our first in a series of question and answers with somebody from Monumental Sports, Monumental Basketball. And today we have the Washington Wizards general manager, Tommy Sheppard. We'll get to him in a moment. But again, this is exclusive right here in the DC 12 clubhouse to DC 12 club members. Each week, this is the place where you're going to hear from people that you want to hear from as we get excited for the next season of Washington Wizards basketball. I'm Dave Johnson. Perhaps you hear me on the radio. I appreciate that. As always, you can connect with me on Twitter at Dave J Sports, and I'll be glad to answer your questions as well. Again, as your DC 12 club member, you can have the opportunity to submit your questions in advance to be a part of this weekly program, again, Off the Court, as soon we look forward to being on the court. All right. Tommy, I practiced all day for a drum roll, but I couldn't get it right. But you deserve more than a drum roll. You deserve an entire band. As always, I appreciate your time. Our Washington Wizards general manager, Tommy Sheppard. And you know what? Part of this whole time is we have to start with the first question, just how you doing? And that's every time I talk to fans, you just want to start there. How you doing? How's things going?
Dave, I'm doing super. I miss you. I miss our fans very much, but we're busy. We're very, very immersed in getting ready for the draft, November 18th. As of now, it's still the NBA draft, so we're excited for that. And guessing that free agency will be right behind that, probably sometime in December. So we're getting ready for what's coming and enjoying the time that we do have right now. In a normal year, we'd be in training camp. This would be about our third or fourth practice. So it's resetting the calendar is a little bit different. And having spent time in Orlando in July and August, I kind of lost part of the summer. So I keep walking around in shorts wondering why it's so cold outside in the mornings, and it's because it's October.
Who knew? Yeah, it's starting to turn. I think some leaves I see outside starting. And indeed, we're going to get to that because this has been a unique year for so many reasons, but really there's not been an off season, and there really doesn't feel like an off season. That month where you just take off, as you mentioned, the draft is coming up. And before we look ahead and go forward, I want to get to something, and it was, I think about the experience in the bubble, and I had the pleasure, even though I was not allowed to be in the bubble in Orlando, to call those broadcasts, to call those games and broadcast those games. And it was significant that the Washington Wizards franchise put themselves in a position to be in that bubble in Orlando. But really, it was a part of history. It's history that you don't want to repeat, but a lot went into pulling that off. And also, that's an experience that probably will continue to impact this team in a positive way.
Absolutely. I think the opportunity that we were afforded to be one of the 22 teams in Orlando, we played the play-in games. We ended up with 11 games, 3 kind of scrimmages, if you will, and then 8 regular season games to finish off our season. Tremendously valuable. We went down there without a full roster. Obviously, Bradley Beal, Davis was out. But at the same time, all of our young guys we maximized their minutes. I think the total number of minutes for our group down there equaled some of the one player on another team. When we played Milwaukee, they had a couple players who had more NBA minutes than our guys combined. So we knew it was a young group. We were the second youngest team in the bubble. But the opportunity to play meaningful games, the opportunity to get out there with the young guys, can't say enough about it. An opportunity for this team to really join up and as a group kind of come together was tremendous.
Team chemistry, as you touched on a little bit there, but I use the term joyful to describe this team anyway. And this team, as I talked to various players while they were in Orlando, they were loving the opportunity to spend more time together, and that bodes well for the future.
Absolutely. I think these guys genuinely enjoy each other's company. They play well together out on the floor and off the floor. I think there's a lot of aligned interests. Very interesting time to be in there as we were witness to what was going on in the outside world, but at the same time, very focused on basketball. We spent an enormous amount of time together and spent some great discussions throughout the entire time on social justice issues and so many other things that are so important to the world, but also spending time just on the basketball court, getting to know each other even better. We had some players that we traded for at the deadline, and they actually only had played with us for about 10, 15 games before we had to go away with the COVID hiatus. So getting back together and finishing the season with guys like Jerome Robinson, very important to us. Shabazz Napier, to get a chance to just finish the season and get to know those guys better as players for us on the go forward. And I think what really was amazing was the people that actually did not travel to Orlando, the support that we received from all of our staff, everybody still working to do whatever they could to help the Wizards from afar. I think that brought interconnectivity that really, I can't say enough about the teamwork that we had.
And we enjoyed, of course, Zach Rosen did a wonderful job in the whole Washington Wizards digital team, the Wizard World blog, and because you wanted to go back and it's something you're never going to forget. Is there something you look back on, because so much has been going on in our country this year, that you really think, you know what, this is going to be with me for the rest of my life based on that experience with your team in Orlando?
Really, it was the run up to getting ready to go to Orlando. All the time we got to spend with our players. It was very unique having one player at one basket at St. E's in our practice facility, the MedStar practice facility. We're normally used to having team scrimmages and practices every day. And then just seeing that opportunity was not there anymore. And what could we do, and how are we going to make the best of that situation? Well, all of our coaches, our staff did a great job of getting our players the best prepared that they could be. And I'll never forget boarding that plane and getting up in the air and headed to Orlando, not knowing what was ahead of us. There was this thing everybody kept referring to as the bubble, and it was just a concept at the time. And once you land and you get immersed in that life, it was tremendous. In terms of not seeing your family, that was not tremendous. That was not good at all. But when we're down there together, 39 days of practicing and games, that was just an unbelievable opportunity for us, and very grateful to be part of that. The NBA, I cannot say enough about what they pulled off.
Yeah, and continue to pull off as well. We appreciate everybody tuning in to our DC-12 Clubhouse. It's Off the Court, visiting with Wizard General Manager Tommy Sheppard. Again, each and every week, we're going to have a special guest for you. You can submit your questions, and we have several here that have been submitted, and you touched on this with the draft obviously coming up, and I should probably get you to get your checklist. You probably have a million things going on. There's so many things to consider, but there's a lot of questions here about the draft, and a lot of people wondering about position or best player available. Again, it's the 9th overall pick. Memory serves me correctly, Rui Hachimura was the 9th pick, and that worked out very well. How do you see that 9th pick, and how do you prepare for it?
Well, I think you always start out with talent. That's the number one thing on our board. We're very data-driven, but high character-driven too. So we scrutinize every single draft pick and try to figure out their best fit for the Wizards. We have needs at every position. Either, as we saw, can't see enough of in the playoffs, is depth. Depth is really what puts teams over. You can survive injuries with better depth. So we look at every position we can add some talent to. For us, we're at the board at the 9th pick, I think you look at the best talent available. We do have a couple needs that we think we can suffice through the draft. If not there, then we'll go through free agency. But we really like 9, and we really like 37, where we're also drafting in the second round. We think we'll get 2 really good players for the future for the Wizards. I would look at it right now. We're looking at, hey, we're not afraid to take a wild swing at somebody for the future. We're not necessarily looking at, hey, we got to go into this draft and find a starter. We were fortunate last year to do that with Rui. We never really drafted him with the idea that he was going to start for us last year. He earned it and did a good job. And I think we can look at this position here same way. When I say wild swing, what I'm saying is, hey, it could be somebody that might not be able to help us this year, maybe even 2 years. But we really feel in the future they're going to be tremendous. And those kinds of players are hard to come by in a draft. This draft right here, I think, is probably the most scrutinized draft in history, because we've had way too much time to look at these players. Normally the draft is in June, and you get through March, you get through all the NCAA tournaments, and then you go through the combine and go through various agent workouts and stuff. And it's a shorter window. Here, this window has been extended since March. The last time we were all together was we were getting ready to go to conference tournaments, and we had scouting meetings. And then all of a sudden this life that we know happened in March, and everything got interrupted. Well, we kept working throughout the entire time. We've actually met more than we've ever met via Zoom calls and keeping up with each other during the weeks since then. And it's been fantastic. But I think with this draft, to me, what it represents to this year is just another opportunity to add some more talent, whatever position it's going to be. We didn't look at the team coming out of the bubble and say, man, I hope we get younger. But at the same time, young players, that it just helps bolster your roster. I think we feel comfortable that our young players are all developing. We're probably going to look to add some more veteran type of leadership through free agency. But I'm really excited about the direction of this team and the draft. We built through the draft now with Rui last year and Admiral. Obviously, the year before we had Troy, and we've added some young players that were in those drafts. So we're pretty good in that category. We just got to keep developing them, getting better. The best thing about rookies when they become second-year players, Dave.
Well, and you know what, that I wanted to just dovetail on that. As you prepare for this draft, the success of Rui Hachimura has probably given you a great luxury, because he's a rookie that's going to be a second-year player, but at times he played like a 5-year veteran. So the success of Rui Hachimura's transition to the NBA probably affords you to look at that ninth pick a little bit differently, or there's not as much pressure to have somebody to help right now, or am I getting that wrong?
No, you're right. Absolutely. We don't ever try to put any pressure on rookies other than to make sure that they're fighting for their minutes, and when they get out on the floor to work their minutes. And I think we were very fortunate last year with the Go-Go. Ryan Richmond did a great job with Admiral Schofield. We assigned him, and he played 1,300 minutes plus in the G League last year. And that's only going to help him for next season, because those minutes weren't available to him with the Wizards. But for Rui, they were available, and he took advantage of it. The injury kind of was really kind of a setback for him, but he still made the most of it, still made second team all rookie. And we feel his position where he's ultimately going to thrive for us is still, at the 4, at the 3, he can play a little bit of stretch 5 as well. But I think for us, versatility is the key to that position of what he plays. And we're going to keep adding more versatile athletes around him. We're going to keep adding more shooting. And I really like the outlook for us.
You mentioned adding. Is there a philosophy the club has about free agency? That is one of the questions from our DC 12 club members. Or how would you describe that? Because free agency is such a wild canvas to look at.
Yeah, it is, for sure. I think there's a lot of players we've identified that we like this person or this position of need. We can probably address it through free agency. But the one thing I can't impress upon you enough, Dave, and you know this, there's nothing free about free agency. It's very expensive. So we want to spend our money wisely. I think the core group of our team moving forward is solid. So we're going to splice in players where we think they can add depth to us and definitely help us get us over the hump in some of these tough games. We had some so many close games last year that we just didn't finish out late in the fourth quarter. And a lot of that was just because they took everything away and forced everything to stop Bradley Beal. And it just got tight at the end of games. Just getting John Wall back next year, that's our number one free agent. We haven't had him for almost 2 seasons now. So getting him back out on the court healthy is going to take a tremendous amount of pressure off of Bradley Beal and off of Scotty Brooks, having to go out there late in games, having 2 guys who can go out and make plays at anywhere on the floor, make everybody better, 7 all-star appearances between the 2 of them. That's going to make us automatically better. But we'll look through free agency definitely to add some key depth in some key areas.
You mentioned John Wall or Bradley Beal. Update us on the life of a general manager right now. How often are you talking to the players and the guys, and what can you share with us?
I have a pretty routine on my calendar every week. We're touching base with pretty much every player, and same with our coaching staff, and the same with our scouts. We just have routine calls throughout the week. But I try to communicate the way that you like to communicate. And if you're a big text guy, then I text with you. If you pick up the phone, I like to talk to you. If you're an email guy, I'm not as big a fan of you, but we'll email, we'll do whatever it takes to communicate. The most important thing to me is that we're always touching base. We're always keeping each other updated, not always just about basketball. I'm pretty well versed on what all of our players are up to off the floor and what their families are up to. And that's very important. We're a very tight-knit group. I think the best thing that I can speak of about our rosters, our players all keep up with each other. And definitely there's a lot of guys that are hanging out and working out together in California right now. We got some guys out there. We had a lot of guys in DC for a while, and then people are starting to go their own ways until we get a better idea what the calendar looks like. But keeping up with players is so instrumental. And so pivot for us, it's just such a priority, but also with our coaching staff, and then certainly within DC, the rest of our staff, the medical staff, our support staff, as I mentioned, scouting, and then nobody more important than our radio guy. So we try to keep up with you too.
I'm gonna have to send you a text based on that. Did you get funny texts? I mean, is that part of the banner that just goes back? Do you get zingers from some of your players?
Absolutely, and I promise, I'm glad these guys play basketball because they'll never make a dime being a comedian. Our players do try to lighten me up and send humorous stuff, and I really enjoy it, though. We have great guys.
Yeah. Hey, listen, we're always talking about defense, and because that's obviously a priority. And that one of the questions coming in is again, how does this team become better defensively? Is it about continuity? Because we often talk about offensive continuity, but keeping players together on a defensive side makes a difference. How do you view this team's challenge to get better defensively?
That's our number one offseason priority, is to get better defensively. I look, since the trade deadline, we went from where we were at the bottom, I think 30th, 29th in the NBA in defense. And even just through the trade deadline to the end of the season, I think we jumped up 14th in that period of time. So that tells me a couple of things. We had to adjust our personnel, get a little bit better at containing the dribbler and keeping paint attacks down. That really hurt us early in the year. But I think as we got better, it is more about continuity than it is personnel. It's more about the knowledge of how to go out and execute and being able to really be able to do that repetition-wise all the time. Last year, we didn't get enough, I don't think, enough repetitions as a group. We had a lot of young guys, a lot of new guys, and that's not making it as much of not trying to make an excuse as much as just pointing out it takes time. To your point, continuity is very important. But there's no excuses moving forward. This group has got some capable defenders. I think a lot of it's going to be, we're going to tighten up some schemes, and we've been looking at a ton of film, watching a ton of stuff in the playoffs. But really, you got to optimize what you have. It's very easy to watch two teams in the finals and say we should defend like that or we should play like that. Well, we don't have that personnel. We have the personnel that we have, and the most important thing is to maximize what you have internally. I think we're going to get tougher, cutting off paint penetration, definitely want to be bigger at the rim. And I think the biggest thing is to be a better defensive rebounding team. A lot of that starts on just, shortening the shot clock for people, giving them less opportunities to move the ball. So those are things we're really focused on, defense by far.
And I want to jump back to something I think you were quoted as saying, and maybe the number is grown, that you interviewed 67 prospects for the draft, and 10 of them have ninth pick potential. Is that the way that's a pretty good harvest right there? Am I characterizing that correct?
Absolutely. That number's crept up too. I think we're close to 80, maybe above 80 now. Yeah. We had a couple guys that we've interviewed twice now, because the NBA is starting their combine, their virtual combine, and there's 70 players that have been invited by the NBA to participate in that. So we have the opportunity to interview several of those players. Fortunately, we had interviewed most of them already. So going back through and interviewing people twice, which is a fun exercise. You want to see if they can remember what they told you the first time around, for sure. But spending a lot, we really try to dive down, ask really important questions to us, and how you respond to those questions says a lot about your character. And so we've done a deep dive on a lot of players. At the end of the day, this is such a unique time where we're not able to have the normal workouts and things that we like to do, but it doesn't mean any day or any time is wasted. We try to maximize it.
Yeah. Well, as we sit here in October and we get closer to a season, whenever that may be, a lot of great questions here from the DC 12 club members. We appreciate your support and thought, and I'll give you a chance right now as you sit here in October, because I know you're excited about this team. I know every time you mentioned that John Wall is your number one free agent in some ways, because he's going to be coming back. What do you dream about at night for next season for the Washington Wizards? What goes through your mind knowing what you know about the talent you have?
Being healthy, being 100% healthy as long as possible, and having enough depth to sustain us when we're not healthy, because there's injuries inevitably come up. But I think the best version of ourselves is we have a really dynamic backcourt with John and Bradley. Bradley's simply one of the very best players in the NBA. Absolutely got robbed of not being on the All-NBA team. The All-NBA team, every player made the playoffs this year, so that kind of tells me a little bit. But I think when I look at where we need to be for next season, it starts with health. And then it evolves with our young players getting another year of experience this season, and then watching them take that next step up. If that's Thomas Bryant, if it's Troy Brown, if it's Mo Wagner, Isak Bonga, those guys are moving up. And then obviously look to see what Rui can do in his second year, taking a big major step up. And then, we're looking to make sure that we have that core group moving forward and keep adding to it. We definitely want to bring Davis Bertans back into the fold as well. That's a big goal. The free agency is out of our control, and that's down the road.
A lot to look forward to. And again, we appreciate your support and being DC 12 club members and joining us for Off the Court. in the DC-12 Clubhouse. We'll be here each and every week, a different special guest. And we thought, what better way to start the proceedings, but with the general manager, Tommy Sheppard, to get the fun started. Again, season ticket members, I want to remind you, you'll have a chance to win great prizes each Thursday in our new DC-12 Club Trivia Challenge. No cheating, just study, get ready. That's coming up on Thursday. All right, you ready? I got a question for you. I've had a lot of questions for you, but this is hopefully a fun question. Our DC-12 Club Trivia Challenge for you, Tommy Sheppard. Your career, and I've known you a long time, and it's covered so many things, and international basketball is thrown in. I mean, you've been living and breathing basketball all over the world with so many people. So I have to ask you, who stands out as the one person, and that might be hard for you to answer, one person you've been the most starstruck to meet?
That's a great question. I would tell you the whole reason I ever picked up a basketball in my life, 5 years old, was Julius Erving. Wow. And Dr. J, he's not the greatest player of all time, but he's my favorite player of all time. And so my first year in the NBA, I got an opportunity to meet him, and it was something else I'll never forget. It was really neat. But, you know, I could throw so many other people right behind him, with Bill Russell, with Michael Jordan, with Magic Johnson, and players that I idolized. But I would tell you, talking to Dr. J definitely took me a step back. You know, I was the guy I wanted to be, and I always wanted to play in the NBA. I wore number 6 religiously when I was a kid. I just knew I was going to make it to the NBA as a player. And then by the time I think I turned 10 or 11, I figured out I might not make it to the NBA as a player, but I always wanted to be in the NBA. And Julius was a huge, huge inspiration to me. Great to meet him. His hands are bigger than anything I've ever seen in my life. When we shook hands, he actually touched my elbow, I think. He had some of the biggest hands I've ever seen, but he just an absolute gentleman, and what a wonderful player he was for me.
And served him well as he was part of the ABA, and then, of course, in the NBA with Philadelphia. Tommy Sheppard, as always, I appreciate so much the time and your time, because I know you got to get back to the working the phones, and it never stops, but I know you love every minute of it as general manager of this team.
Hey, it's just great to see you. I can't wait to hear your radio party, get the group back together. In the meantime, we all do what we have to do to keep the Wizards moving forward, and we can't wait to be together again, as I said. And I appreciate everybody in the DC Clubhouse and everybody that makes things possible in the off season to keep supporting us. I appreciate the support, and I promise your loyalty will be rewarded. We're excited for next season.
Well said. Well said. Tommy Sheppard, the general manager of the Washington Wizards, and off the court in our DC-12 Clubhouse for DC-12 Club season ticket members. Again, we appreciate sincerely, and we have over the years, for your support. Again, we appreciate you submitting your questions, and we several submitted similar questions, so we hope we got to the topics that you wanted to hear about today. Next week's guest will be announced tomorrow, so be sure to check your email. Tommy doesn't check his email. You have to text Tommy, but you guys out there, check your email for more information and an opportunity to submit your questions. And don't forget, coming up on Thursday is the DC Club Trivia Challenge, a chance to win great prizes. In fact, I think I'm giving something away. So that is coming up tomorrow. But again, we appreciate your time and support of the Washington Wizards. And thank you for watching Off the Court in the DC-12 Clubhouse.